It is spring to summer period. The trees are becoming greener and greener. The flowers are blossoming its yellow, bright colors all over the Golden Province. That means it's spring to summer period. This is the period in which our Golden Province is hosting major quality global events. This is the period in which our collaborative infrastructure, whether it's transport, whether it's musical, back-end system of sound system, tech, the food, are at play. This is a period in which we do tourism. My name is Barba Gaoganediwe. Welcome to another episode of Gauteng Lifve, a platform where we share, engage, and tell on everything that has to do with the visitor economy, everything on how that interface with the creative, sports, transport, and other sectors that makes up the secular economy we find ourselves living in. As we always do, we bring to the show taste makers, change makers, and those that are pioneering forward in the sectors that they represent. Our guest for today is no different. He is the CEO of the SANTACO travel desk, but a pioneering tech and change agent in his own right. One of the phenomenal young persons to look after that asset to take this industry forward, not just now, but into the future. Ntate Eugene, Ngoetjana, thank you very much and welcome to Gauteng Live.
Dumelang, le kae?
No nka be le bone ka tente.
No, ra leboha.
Wa bona go na le tente go bontsha go na le mathata.
No, e jwalo.
No, so go na tente, so tsotlhe di apere tsiang.
Ra leboha.
No, thank you very much for accepting our invitation, and you hold a very important responsibility, where you are responsible for engineering, dynamism in the South African National Taxi Council and the travel desk in particular. Briefly, what is this travel desk and what do you guys do?
Thank you so much for welcoming us here, as I'm in my capacity representing the council itself. After the 2020 Lekgotla resolutions, there's a few resolutions that brought the whole transport fraternity together. Yeah. Part of that was digitalization, professionalization, corporatization, as well as formalization, amongst others. Okay. And in that regards, that gave rise to multi-sectoral collaboration, because if we are speaking about a more professional taxi industry, a more corporatized taxi industry, a digitalized taxi industry, we're speaking to an industry that's able to speak to current booking systems or digital platforms. We're speaking to a standard-based, accounting-based transport system. And we embraced that and saw that in light of the government, particularly the Department of Tourism and yourselves within Gauteng, through the Gauteng Tourism Authority, saying, as we said, we do tourism. Yeah. We felt that it's time that we helped amplify the message to fellow South Africans, to members within our ecosystem, to say we do tourism too. Yeah. How do we do tourism? Domestic tourism is the bedrock of all travel. And until we get that system right, or kind of find a way to integrate it with the formalized structures within the other mobility sectors, we cannot hope to be globally competitive. We cannot hope to position or market the country as a destination of choice until certain elements were put right
together. Yeah. And to what extent does your own upbringing, earlier on we were chatting about your own upbringing, having to walk, from where your mother worked to Alex and to other places. I guess back then it was not as it is now. You not so many options available, but sometimes you also want to save that little fare to be able to buy yourself nice things. Yes. But maybe let's even take it back. I guess born and bred in Limpopo.
Polokwane, yes.
Yeah, PLK. And you get to come over, firstly probably visiting your mother, and then had to stay over. Your memories of back then and how you were commuting and how that actually shaped the work that you are doing now.
Well, generally, yes, I have a very fond relationship with the taxi industry. My uncle, a couple of relatives used to run their own scholar transport business. So
Okay.
I was living with my grandparents back in Polokwane, Moleji, to be specific. And, when you're a village boy schooling in the city or in the town, you wake up very early. So I would be at the stop by 5 o'clock in the morning.
Waiting for the bus or
waiting for the
transport.
transport
Okay.
to come and fetch me. And then by the time you get to school, you're already tired. I've already eaten my lunch.
Yeah. So you breakfast and lunch already
on the way to school.
Yeah.
And by the time you do get to school, then you then get confronted by so many distractions, and if you are not careful, you might get left by your scholar transport. And you finding your way back home as a primary school child is not easy. Fast forward, I then moved from village to city. City life would be when we lived in Johannesburg. My mother used to work in Johannesburg since way back then.
Okay.
Lived in Hillbrow. Then we moved to Lyndhurst. Lyndhurst, quite close to Alexandra. So I used to went to school at Summerwood Primary School. I remember taking a decision one day, and I was tired of the school transport that fetched me, and I was like, nah, I want to walk. Not to save any money per se, but I just wanted the ability to just walk. And fortunately enough, during those days, it was still safe for small primary school children to walk. And that was one of my best years of my life. Then you move from city to now. My father comes from Val, comes from Sharpeville. So even there, I used to walk, and that was living with my grandmother in Sharpeville in high school.
Okay.
And I appreciated that as well. So I had quite a few experiences in different modes of transport. Sometimes in varsity, I used trains. There were certain courses that I had to attend in Soshanguve.
Okay.
Even though I attended at the TUT main campus in Pretoria.
So you were in the Soshanguve one?
Yes.
The main one, actually.
The main one is in Pretoria West, but there are certain courses.
Back then, during our time.
The main one was in Soshanguve.
The main one was the TNT then back one.
Okay.
The one in Soshanguve.
Oh, right.
Before the integration.
Yes.
So you attended there?
Yes, I attended there as well.
That's my alma mater, by the way.
Oh, that's great. That's great, yeah.
So, lovely. Yeah. So, now dialing back to what we were conversing, and surely this environment had influenced on how you interface with public transport.
Yes.
So for those that don't know or regard SANTACO as a taxi organization, how do you unpack the South African National Taxi Council and the difference between an organization and a council? And I take it, if it's a council, it means it's said to represent different pressure groups or organizations that exist. Therefore, the council becomes a body that sits almost here at the top representing this. But to our viewers and everybody else, how do you unpack what this council or this organization is all about?
Thank you for that question. As you can see, my years do not allow me to fully articulate the earlier years of the taxi industry.
No, for sure.
But what I could say, what I could put across the table is that the taxi industry was born from resilience. We have an undeniable apartheid past, which has to do with apartheid spatial planning, etc. So black families came together. They put together their own savings to ensure that safe mobility is not just a privilege but a reality. And during the 80s, a lot of violence was prevalent within that space. Leading up to the 90s, and in the early 2001, the Department of Transport saw it fit to unite all taxi associations under one representative banner or council, where instead of resolving issues through violence, a council was established where different interest groups, different pressure groups would be able to negotiate and chart a way forward. It is comprised of many organizations and associations. It is a council, just like you would find a nurses' council, a doctors' council, etc. as we embrace the Lekgotla resolutions, it actually brings even more clarity to what we mean when we say it's the South African National Taxi Council. We represent professional drivers, we represent professional members or business people, and not necessarily the criminal elements that often get associated with the taxi industry. But in a nutshell, it represents all modes of transport, minibus taxis, as they were usually seen as SANTACO. But to be honest, they are part of SANTACO. Then we have the meter taxi and e-hailing. Now e-hailing is legal, so we can clearly agree and say no, they are formally part of the professional public transport system in South Africa. Then we have scholar transport as well. Then we have cross-border. All of those pressure or interest groups are all under the council. So that is where we meet, and that is where we deliberate on issues that affect all of us. And
so will you say this? So for somebody who says, "Oh, so this is designed around a taxi," and what we in South African lexicon characterize as a taxi, obviously the Americans have a completely different orientation to what a taxi is, but a minibus in our environment, or that moves beyond. When you wake up any South African and say what is a taxi, they will refer to a minibus. But does that also includes your private registered vehicles?
Yes. Generally speaking, that would be the meter taxi cabs. They're also classified as a taxi. To my surprise, as I was coming, not today, obviously, a year or two ago, on my travels, only then did I find out that even an aeroplane is a flying taxi.
It is.
I think we are always, as people, we're always, what can I say? We always separated by definition. How we define ourselves and
at
how we
moment.
define. Yes, at that moment. So even the word e-hailing, as it came into our society, I mean, what's hailing? Go tauta.
Absolutely.
You understand? And the E is what? From email,
it's just
electronic.
From an electronic.
Exactly. So
nothing different there, nothing new.
So we got surprised as what interest groups within the taxi industry when now people were separating themselves. I mean, meter taxis were fighting against the new entrants, which were calling themselves e-hailing, that weren't regulated at that time, and which honestly it caused strife within the industry, because now the costs that are carried by licensed operators weren't carried by the unlicensed operators, and they had unfair advantage over the licensed operators. Now we live in a republic, in a constitutional republic. How do we then allow others to, the animal farm?
When there's a no, I get you, and I guess and that's a fair advantage, also characterized by the environment. I mean, anything that comes into play at that particular time, characterized by other experiences from other spaces, gets to be hyped. We judge a destination whether it's progressive, visitable through the availability of an Uber or a Bolt. Or there's a hop of red bus that used to be in London. That is, those types of things, and very few gets thrown into the attention to details like are these people registered? And when that is raised, it looks like anti-change or unappreciating the other role players. Your take on this?
My take on that, we should not, in light of us being quite a progressive country, we should not, in our pursuit of innovation, in our pursuit of technology, we should also understand our past and understand that the masses are still catching up to the economy. For certain sections of the economy were denied to most of the public, and we are now well advancing into a digital economy, an AI-based economy, but yet our people are still trying to catch up with the knowledge economy that the world has fast outpaced. our people were encouraged to study certain things. I mean, filing, for example, at some point was a career.
Yeah.
Now replaced by a computer in 2000. We have so many graduates that are unemployed simply because our economy or the industries are not communicating with the institutions of learning.
100, yeah.
And now we find a mismatch where industries are looking for talent, but the talent that we have or that is produced by our institutions is not what the industries require. In light of the gig economy, if I can put it that way, it has rapidly changed the way people move, the way people travel, the way people interact, the way people trade, the way people interact generally with the outside environment. And that has caused a lot of people into panic mode.
Yeah.
The public transport sector is ka Sotho re re, ke mo ditšhuana di tshabelang teng.
Okay, yeah.
When a couple of years back, one of the major banks, including many other industries, retrenched a lot. The one bank closed about 100 branches. Now imagine one branch. How many people work there?
Yeah.
You've got skilled, semi-skilled, unskilled labor that lost their jobs. And the most natural, most easiest place to find relevance in the economy is the public transport sector.
Yeah.
Be it going to wash cars in the taxi rank, or be it selling queue marshals, be it being a driver, be it taking your pension if you were a branch manager and buying a fleet of taxis or buying one e-hailing car. That is usually the most easiest way to feed your family. And unfortunately, we are at a period where we need government assistance, we need collaborative relations, where we are able to recognize the importance of the industry to millions of South Africans and find ways to find relevance for those South Africans within our ecosystem and within other ecosystems. And that's why we stretched over to tourism to say, yes, everyone is rushing here, but we would like to produce drone pilots. We would like to imagine one day having flying taxis in the country, but we would need the workforce that would be able to drive those flying taxis.
But others might argue, Eugene, that the taxis are already flying because and you spoke about the unruly elements within the sector, within your industry, and I guess there's nowhere where you go, nobody asks you, not ask you about this.
Yes.
Because like in any other sector, there are unscrupulous elements, but they are more pronounced in that space, because it's also a platform where we interface as commuters of the public with the background that you've just painted almost daily.
Yes.
But also it's our resort. So when you bear dithapelo tsaka and everything ho wena rara, that's what we do when we get into a taxi.
Yes.
We hand over our lives to the driver.
Yes.
Yes. We get to work, we go, thank God we are at work. When we go back home, we do the same.
Yes.
That's why there's that intimate relations with the taxi.
Yes.
But they are flying over the pavements. They are flying over the traffic.
Yes.
Flying over the robots. And it seems to be almost unchecked to a level where it's entrenched. To a level where any reckless behavior on the road is characterized like
culture,
like taxi drivers.
Yeah.
So even when you are driving your golf car recklessly, but you are like a taxi driver. I guess these are some of the challenges the council and the broader ecosystem of this industry had to deal with. And am I correct saying, while there are many, many fantastic good drivers, the few that are there continues to blemish the work that you do?
You're very correct. And thank you for pointing that out. I see the taxi industry as a microcosm of the macrocosm. Society. I believe the taxi industry really reflects our society, its deepest flaws, its deepest strengths and weaknesses, etc. For me, I believe that true liberation lies outside of politics.
Yeah.
Mental health matters. We come from a very, very violent past. And you would see even with the older generations that were raised by their parents, most would describe their fathers as very cold and distant disciplinarians.
Yeah.
And the mothers would also be very, very strict.
Yeah.
And now we come... I myself am a parent, and trust me, I'm a far softer version
you
of my parents.
Move away from what...
Exactly. So
yeah.
as a society, we are evolving. We are gradually moving away from violence, and going back, without diverting back to the taxi industry, going back to my statement on mental health.
Yeah.
It's good that you mentioned the driver behaviors, where you find the drivers skipping robots, driving on pavements. You know, the commuter behavior also plays a part in that, because when you're a commuter and you want to get off here, you don't really care about the municipal bylaws.
Yeah.
You don't care.
Or you are late. You want to get home.
You want to get
home or to get to work.
Do you know
because
that?
You left your house late.
Exactly. Then you abuse the driver.
Yeah.
Then you find that the whole taxi is abusing the driver. Give us our money. Hey, 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
The next day...
Oh, why are you driving slow?
Why are you driving slow? The next day, they avoid getting into your taxi. They go into another taxi.
Yeah.
And then it naturally tells you as a driver that in order to satisfy the owner or my boss, I need to ensure that I drive in a way which satisfies the commuters.
And that gets entrenched.
That gets entrenched. It becomes a culture. You end up being favored because you break the most laws, because you have a car that doesn't comply with regulations, that's loud, that does this, because you attract certain people who prefer that. I think our people were not taken into confidence with regards to what this new South Africa means, what these laws means. I mean, the privileges, the rights that we have also have responsibilities. And unfortunately, it can be easy to blame the taxi industry. Like I said, it's the microcosm.
Yeah.
The owner has pressure from the banks that financed his fleet to pay a certain amount of money at the end of the month. Besides,
so he puts the pressure on the driver.
Yeah. Now the driver, what does the driver do? The driver is under pressure. They also then drive in a way that is not hospitable to other road users. They speak to their commuters in ways that do not talk to the customer being king. And the cycle goes on. And the commuters, which are the workforce, the working population, with all the abuse and all the chaos on the roads, they transfer that into their workplaces. So, in fact, that affects the pace of the economy.
Yeah.
If our roads were cleaner, if we had a more, tolerable way of interacting with one another, if we realized the roles and responsibilities within the mobility ecosystem, I believe that we could be a very, very palatable destination of choice.
Speaking of that, and I think you correctly characterize it, but at what point do we then start engaging or gauging progress? Because fine, we can paint this picture, we can look back, we can actually look at the tradition, the creation of this industry, part of the resistance movement back then. And now for a change, the monies are within the community, the monies are with the community leaders who some of them started the industry. But to what extent did the system, and you might not have been there back then, as you've said, but to what extent did the system also entrench that so that it becomes the black industry that just sits there, that has nothing to do with the entire ecosystem or economy that is made up of multiple industries? Because I guess before we look into a taxi, there's tires, there's parts. The taxi person there's so much. There's the mats, the rubber, but you had so many people back then, even now, owning, but not even owning a facility that puts petrol into these taxis, and that was sitting with big conglomerates outside the system, and therefore created an environment where rules, regulations, design thinking, expansion was not entertained. Therefore, confined the learning and the execution with this multi-generational work to this just setup So even when I take up from my dad, I take up the trades and everything else that characterize what the dad took from my grandparents.
Yes. No. The very very important question. You know, the taxi industry, honestly speaking, like I said, we ferry, according to stats, I say, that's not even our stats.
Yeah.
We ferry close to 16 million people daily.
Yeah.
And that is almost the population of Gauteng. So we ferry Gauteng every day.
Every day.
You know, back and forth. That's about 32 million trips. But we've just been focused on that revenue generation model, nothing outside of that. I see it as the trachea of the economy. You know, we contribute about, is it 47 billion to the economy year on year. But that 47 billion just passes through and goes to other parts of the body, not necessarily the taxi industry. And with the Lekgotla resolutions and under our president, Abna Mhlabane, we've taken a resolute stance to say we want to increase our involvement within the value chain. And that is why he has been on tours around the world together with other members to the UK, to China, to Ivory Coast, other African countries specifically looking at how organized. Funny enough, we are the most organized public transport system or sector in Africa. And other African countries want to replicate that.
They want to replicate what we regard as disorganized.
Yes. Unfortunately, most South Africans haven't been to other African countries where...
They go to Lagos and want to see a public transport mess.
Yes. We are speaking now about... in light of the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement, where we're speaking seamless travel, seamless trade. We're speaking about how to then form an African Transportation Council. When looking to China, we're looking at China leading the world in EV technologies, leading the world in R&D, leading the world in digital technologies, etc. And we're saying, instead of multinationals coming into our space and taking even the little that we're able to sustain our lives with, let's become industrialists ourselves. Let's partner with Chinese, UK, or other countries that are actually willing to partner with us and grow us. You know, invest in skills transfer, invest in infrastructure, invest in technologies that will help better position our people. You know,
but Eugene, so I hear you. But in light of that background and in light of that generational setup, at what point do you then measure progress? It can be gradual, it can be step by step. You know, we still do the 4 months city, you know, in a system where very few people carry cash. You know, and to a point where actually if you don't have the exact amount, you are squandered inside a taxi. It's a daily commuter issue. And like I'm saying, it has been multiple years and multi-generational. Therefore, you don't have a magic wand or, you know, the magic spray of soccer players. You know, and then they stand up. So you don't have a magic spray to spray this system so that it can then allow for tap and pay because of the structural dynamism that has been there. Yourselves, and especially in the travel desk section, but how you interface with the council broadly and its members. Because you then have a meter taxi that has always been appreciative of a different transaction method. So not knowing how much you are going to pay also guides on how much you carry. You get what I mean? Than knowing that a taxi fare is 5 rand, and therefore I need 10 rand. You know? So therefore, some of the learnings will have been there. And now you being a council, to what extent do you then unlearn some of the previous behavior, learn from what was also previous, but can assist you to move forward without losing the heritage of this communal, community-based pioneering and a model which I still refer to as a model of black excellence, despite other views,
Other challenges, yes.
you know. So how do you gauge progress? At what point do you say a behavioral change progress is 1 to 3?
Yes.
When I see a taxi driver stopping and asking the commuters to go help assist in an accident, or any of the stuff that normally characterize our Ubuntu, how do we then reflect on payment systems that might have been piloted? Therefore, their uptake becomes a measure of progress we are making. It doesn't have to be a 360-10, you know.
No.
So I'm saying, as you guys are sitting, whether in your lekotlas or in your platforms, what are some of the metrics that you use to actually measure progress? Because fundamentally, I think there's a general agreement that something needs to change.
No, generally. Look, remember, resolutions then speak to policies. The policies then speak to the law. And the resolutions, we had the resolutions in 2020. I would like to state on record that we only had our first, in 20 years, of more than 20 years existence of SANTACO, we only had our first policy conference last year.
Okay.
Now, you can imagine. So there was no policy. Everyone was just doing their own thing within the public transport system.
Ke batla o deliver 3,000. Period how paka taxi aga o deliver 3,000 guided by one police.
So we had to now take over, consideration of all the views, form resolutions. The resolutions became policy. That's why most members were workshopped on the policy last year. And this year we had our very first AGM where we spoke about our need to then acclimatize to the new market trends, where the market is shifting. We need to acclimatize to global trends so that we are able to better position ourselves and the country as a destination of choice. Ourselves being, natural players within the ecosystem of travel. How do we measure progress? As you were asking, the first policy conference happened last year. It's very slow, but we have now a system of measuring
and
our progress.
Something to reference.
Which speaks to digitization, as we were speaking to the cashless payment system. So we needed a framework that will be able to put context to those resolutions.
100.
So the resolutions then spoke to our policies. The policies then spoke to the different skilling and capacitation workshops that we are having right now. Right now, when we have workshops or when we have council meetings, we are not discussing conflict. We're discussing progress. We're discussing how to position our business people from owner drivers or from owners into fleet owners. We're speaking about how to diversify into other economic sectors. We are in transport industry. But we now find a situation where people travel less to places like I don't want to mention names, but let me just mention
traditional spaces.
Your retail spaces, where now people just use their phones to get groceries. You understand? Now, that means that other sectors are now getting into our sector, but through digitalization, but yet we are holding ourselves back. But we are able to provide a value-add service. Instead of just relying on that one worker that goes to work, knocks off at a certain time, now we idle for the longest time and then wait for that one other worker again, then it's a rush. So we are moving from that analog-based system into a digital-based system where now we have fleet management technology that we assist, that we give to our members to show them exactly where the wastage could be. Because some people think that rushing or speeding will make more money.
You get more people, you are going to make more trips.
And then you spend more petrol.
More tires.
The brakes, more tires. You understand? So now we are able to actually, we are creating mobility scientists within SANTACO, where
100.
we are able to quantify how every action leads to a loss or a profit or a decline in sales. So in terms of measurement of progress, now that we have a framework, now that we have deliverables. I think now the Department of Transport is now actively seeing our implementation of the Lekgotla resolutions, and that is why we are now have been working with different stakeholders to see how we can digitize the taxi industry.
And I guess there's a lot of training, upskilling that needs to take place. Like I'm saying, this is centuries, decades long industry.
Yes.
Generational. Even the behavior is generational.
Yes.
It's just transmitted. But at what point do we then house, harness, package the good so that you are able to use this good, whether into the future or now or previously, but there's general good. Like I'm saying, a lot of people got their jobs because they had to take a taxi to go to their interviews.
Yes.
And they didn't have to walk. So the evolution from donkey carts to now mobility that is faster and the like. Sometimes we downplay that,
yes.
but also it created wealth. Money, it created some form of economic emancipation. How do we package and harness all those? We're talking about the other day how the community of Orlando West at Vilakazi Street will not allow a scumbag to steal a bag or snatch a bag. They will actually apprehend that person, hand them over to the police because they've seen the benefits of a growing tourism in their community. So the good that came as a result of this, there were no tenders back then when tech industry was the base of black excellence in our communities. So they will have not gone into the taxi business because they got a tender somewhere.
No, yes.
It will have been out of the hard work, the toil, and risk-taking at that time, as you characterize it, that there were also so many tensions involved.
Yes.
At what point do we package that good, to then shape where we are going? And the reason I'm asking you this is, and you correctly articulate the history despite your youthful age, but where else, apart from the elders that are in the industry that you interface with, you get this information? Even Stats SA might get it through its formal channels, but how formal are those channels and how accurate, or is it what we want them to get? So my point here is there's been so much good out of the industry. How do we ensure that we don't lose that, that we package? And most of it is just out of humanity, Ubuntu, and just being part of the communities. A lot of songs were introduced through the taxis. I can go on and on and on about that, but how then do we use that good to package a long story, almost a curriculum of where you want to be?
Thank you so much. Now, in light of how do we package that? You are very correct. Institutional memory is lost when the elders leave us, and we realize that we need to institutionalize the taxi industry. What does that mean? We mean we need to partner with academic institutions. We are now in the process of partnering with the University of Johannesburg to form a taxi academy of some sort.
Wow.
Where, as you spoke about curricula, we no longer want to be seen as a destination of choice for people who do not want to learn, who do not want to expand, grow, and learn. I like the term scumbags when you describe criminal elements. Criminal elements will always find opportunities anywhere. And unfortunately, because we were not professionalized, it was harder to pick, to understand, to see who's who within the entire value chain. So now we have formulated a taxi industry recruitment agency. But before I jump to that, on my quality assurance checks that I would do in different ranks, be it Barba, be it taxi rank in Pretoria, I was surprised one time when found a younger taxi driver displaying a culture that you would associate. And mind you, that taxi driver is not even of that tribe, of a specific tribe, but they acted in a way that they thought that in order to fit in the space, they must be rude, they must be this, they must be that.
Even the posture must be
the posture and all of that. And also that leads to a bit of tribalism because people misrepresent other people, you know. And the taxi industry, because of the violence, you know, certain people tend to want to play bigger than they actually are. And certain people tend to feel better about themselves when they make other people feel small. So that is a culture that needs to be raised, that needs to, what can I say, not be part of the industry. And that is why we are now partnering with academic institutions to make taxi operating or the taxi operation a legitimate, or not even a legitimate, that is the totally wrong word to use, but a structured business, you know, with professional roles, with people understanding their roles within each section of the business. Because now we find business owners who do the marketing, they do the administration, they do, you know, everything, one person. But now with AI so now we are entering a new phase, you know, where we are now looking to professionalize our members, professionalize their businesses, and that means also professionalizing the staff. The staff also speaks to the drivers. So it won't be a case where a person chooses to drop out of school and then, no, I will drive a taxi. No. With the talks and that we're having with government and other stakeholders, we're looking into a future where it will not be easy for people who are not mindful of their rights and responsibilities to be part of our space, you know. So I think in a nutshell, I would say until we institutionalize ourselves, you spoke about the taxi, the history of the taxi industry. We're also speaking about a transport museum or a taxi museum where we'll be able to show the earliest taxi until the newest taxi models, where we'll be able to speak about our role in our recent past and how people were ferried in that recent past. I love history. I was checking this other history book and I saw a very sad picture of a Patco bus back then being shot at with a tear gas canister, and this lady just jumped out of the bus while it was moving. And you understand how far public mobility or mobility safety has evolved from back then till now. You understand? I don't think anyone in their right minds in the South Africa of today would shoot a tear gas canister in a moving bus, you know. And I don't think in 10, 20 or 5 years we would find some of the violence that we find today in light of intentional. You know, there's a good quote that says, evil wins when good men do nothing. And we have far more good men and good women in the taxi industry than bad elements. And you find most of the time that those bad elements don't even own a taxi.
They just part. Collaborations, partnerships, and how this could shape up the current, the now, and the future of this history making, this long tradition, this industry of taxi in South Africa. After a short break, let's continue our conversation with the guest.
Did you know? The South African taxi industry consists of approximately 200,000 officially registered minibus taxis, and taxis account for 65% of the transport total, while buses account for 20% and 15% being rail.
Welcome back to this exciting edition of Gauteng Lifve, the platform where we share and engage everything about the visitor economy. And in this show with my guest Eugene, we are talking about the interface between tourism and transport, and in particular this glorious taxi industry and how it's transitioning to encapsulate the entire sector, the entire travel experience. People were talking earlier on about the taxiing, and when an aeroplane takes you off, it's normal, but sometimes people associate taxing just with the minibus.
Yes.
But in the aviation language, there's taxing that is there, and I guess that's where we should be in the integration of all these modes
Yes.
of transport. Before the short break, we were talking about the collaborations and brilliant work that you are doing in bringing in partners, the universities of Johannesburg, the taxi academy or whatever.
Yes.
That you, and I guess there lies the opportunity to actually formally be part of the tourism sector also,
Yes.
not just through the travel desk,
No.
but because you house probably the largest fleet of infrastructure required to move people from one place to another.
Yes.
When the Gauteng closes off at 9 o'clock, the minibuses are there.
Yes.
The taxis are there.
Yes.
When people, how we used to travel back in the days, and they hire a taxi, and then we go to the festival.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's how trusting, but how also available and customer centric the industry has always been. How are you dealing with another old age tradition of pirating, especially in an environment where we also seek to correct the wrongs that were entrenched and normalized for so long? And the reason I'm saying this is because my late dad actually was the person who introduced this terminology to me at a very young age. Coming to my Mafikeng, had a station wagon, and say, "Hey, my son, I had to pirate coming in here." And asking, "What is it? Or is it our team, Orlando Pirates?" No.
Yeah.
It's actually giving people the lift and they pay. And we have seen this finding itself now in the modern day South Africa, where your members are now being accused of trying to remove people from private cars because you are exclusively responsible for ferrying people from one place to another. How are we dealing with this issue within the industry, but also in a manner that appreciate the core relations and coexistence between the various modes of transport, but also the evolving nature of people's ability to also have their own private mobility?
Thank you for that one. I think that I wouldn't say it's a tough question, but it's a very controversial one. It has caused a lot of emotional flare-ups.
Yeah.
It's easy to get the crowd on your side, especially when you tug on their heartstrings. And that's very flammable. I think people have been using very flammable description of what some of our members have been doing. Yes, we are not sanctioning illegal roadblocks. We're not sanctioning the illegal. We're not also sanctioning the ferrying or pirating, as you described. People do not realize that the reason why we have operating permits is because by law you cannot ferry public the public with your private car without being
ability confirmation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If you give a lift, a hike to a commuter, and God forbid or heaven forbid you get an accident on the road, you could be liable to millions.
Yeah.
And that 20 rand or that 50 rand that you're making, is it worth the millions that you might pay should you get into an accident? We're not saying you will get into an accident, but we're saying commuters, drivers, operators, let us together, under the oversight of government, let us understand our roles and responsibilities within the usage of our roads. Little information is very dangerous. And some people tend to run with little information, and that works for them. Truth be told, even within those elements, you find people who are not necessarily part of SANTACO or the taxi industry that extort people people who may be feeding their own family, but then they extort them because they realize there's an opportunity to extort people because not enough information is being shared. And that is why we've also, as the council, we saw it right in light of all the violent flare-ups to together with the private security industry, together with national law enforcement, to start a national taxi response service company.
Okay.
As you would see, the new NLTA, gazetted NLTA regulations, they spoke to the need of a panic button.
Yes.
We were part of
that close conversation and structuring what needs to be go as the regulations.
Yes, because we want a situation where our drivers, because we find even in e-hailing, our drivers getting killed, robbed, female drivers getting killed, robbed, even raped. We find riders taking advantage of drivers, and some drivers who are not properly vetted taking advantage of the riders. So that speaks to a system that needs a response service, be it you're a commuter, be it you're another road user. But we want to be in a position to also arrest or effect arrest on people who pose as legitimate taxi.
So now this expand almost the law enforcement infrastructure, obviously within your parameters of your space. Therefore, I can't get away with murder because there's no law enforcement, traditional law enforcement official in that space. Now that empowering, but how do we make sure that you equally put the safeguards so that also that don't get abused? But equally, how does these services also extend to, I know last year, SANTACO signed an MOU with SATO Villages and Township Tourism Organization. And for me, what was striking was how this was long overdue. Because, for example, if you want to engender transformation, if you want to mainstream a direct majority beneficiation into an industry and even expand what has been built out of the spoils of the few in that black excellence that I characterize, how then do you tap into an existing ecosystem? Who provides transportation to shuttle cars? At what point, when you have a G20, we can never have enough transport. At what point do we plug in the taxi industry as a whole to provide an additional fleet? I liked what I saw last time at the Africa's Travel Indaba in Durban. The shuttle services from hotels to the venue and back and in between. It was the responsibility of the taxi association in that vicinity than going to hire from the likes of your AVs and the like shuttles that provides. And that demonstrated the direct beneficiation of the industry. But I saw a different breed of drivers. I saw drivers, not necessarily that a suit describes any form of competence or a better standard, but I saw completely different dressed drivers. I saw a completely different behavior because I was not just being commuted to the venue because I know I was looking at a growth point here. And that was further instituted by what I saw as the driver's behavior and the actual excellent management of the queues, the hospitality, everything we do tourism sustainably and responsibly was at play. So at what point in implementing some of the tenets of such MOU with the likes of SATO does the taxi sector, through its infrastructure, come in formally and say, this is what we have? Obviously, you might not transport heads of state to the venue of the G20 with minibus taxis. But surely in a red zone environment, accredited transport provider can include minibus taxis, obviously with vetted drivers and the like. Do you see that as further opportunities and expansion and the formalization and professionalization of the sector to embrace everyone in the ecosystem.
No, definitely. And I think also, I'm glad that you mentioned the fact that you wouldn't expect us to ferry heads of state in taxis, even though some of our heads of state get ferried in buses when they go to the UK and the likes.
Yeah.
But this is a different story.
Yeah.
Cash is king.
Yeah.
We need to also look at commuter preferences and provide a multi-tiered product. Some people prefer traveling alone, even though they may hire an entire taxi or a 7-seater. For themselves, some people prefer a private car. Some people prefer quantum. Some people prefer group or sharing the cost of travel. Not every one of our members and not every taxi would be able to provide services to certain events. It's always about the preference. What kind of taxis are required, the drivers that are required, their expertise, their competencies, etc. So ours is no longer in Lovuyangena, where we get into a space and we say we demand this. No. We are saying we are interested in working with you. We're interested in providing services. What competencies or what do we need to provide? Give us a spec sheet. And we are able to provide those services to that level. I think, to be honest, some of our members did provide services to the G20, even though they provided in their own private companies. The fact is, some of our members do own exclusive fleet, S-classes, your V-classes.
Absolutely.
You wouldn't think so. Even helicopters, and people wouldn't associate helicopters with the taxi industry. Yes, but we do have that fleet. Even though it's private fleet, it's not public fleet. It's not the fleet that belongs to the council itself, but it belongs to our members within the council. And we are saying that, look, we want to position other members to play a part in some of these.
I really want to see this out, Eugene, and I know you are quite digital savvy.
Yes.
So how do we package this information out? Without necessarily contravening the POPI Act and members' privacy and their own rights and privileges, but this picture that gives the entire fleet inventory, because still the taxi industry outlook out there is a minibus, the e-hailing. It's fighting the taxi industry. Meter taxi is fighting these ones. How do you package and I guess platforms like these and many others that we will want to collaborate with you in availing could help. But how do we package this to say this is the ecosystem that looks at 1954, 1960, 1970, 2005, 2025, and the evolution in an infographic or a digital design of a comic strips that just showcases those different stuff, and it becomes part of public education mechanism, because the province is in a process of CBD revitalization and mobility becomes crucial. We host major events. Mobility becomes crucial. But if I know that there's this catalog where I'm able to pick and choose correctly, like you're saying, per rider consumer preference, the council is at my service.
Hence, now we're in a process of digitizing. So through digitizing, you're able to reach more people. It's one thing to be known to have a certain fleet in the part of the country that you live in, but when you're able to digitally avail the fleet, we'll be in a better position where people will be able to personalize their journeys, and that is what we want to see. I think the one thing that the multinationals, for us, technology should be inclusive and not just disruptive. We understand technology is disruptive, but it needs to be inclusive. And that's why I mentioned the gig economy, to say we need to take people into our confidence as we move into different economies, from the knowledge economy to the gig economy. So for us, once we have completed our app, we are busy with the super app, we'll be able to allow people to tap into our fleet, to see exactly what we have. We'll be able to allow our members to list their fleets.
100.
Uh,
They can list in the Visit Gauteng mobile app right now while you are busy with
yes.
with your super app,
Yeah.
because that's where we list the business. But we will provide more details on that. But continue.
I think we will talk more about that. But indeed, and that's
Yeah.
why, it's Gauteng, everything starts here. And that's
Yeah.
why we even partnered with UJ, because we want them to be our research partners,
Yeah.
so that when we do speak to government partners such as yourself, we speak in a language that would best speak to the need.
Yeah.
We'll also speak to the opportunity to say we intend on having documenting or packaging who we are. We intend on, making our sector more professional.
Okay.
And we intend on establishing a museum that will speak to where we come from and where we intend to go.
And that's where the travel thing
Yes.
also comes in there. I will not want, as we move towards wrapping up, so we spoke at length about the drivers.
Yes.
We spoke at length, not that much at length, about the owners. And we actually want to pay tribute to the owners that, despite how some they are characterized, but it's never been a easy, route to take.
Yeah.
Where there are no formal rules and regulations. So you have to learn as you go, create as you go. And will you say, and I always compare this, and it might be an unfair comparison, it might be my own biased, nuanced. And maybe yourself as my learned friend, you might help us. So let's take the funeral industry.
Yes.
Am I correct to say it's predominantly black and almost structured on a taxi industry model, and therefore some of the challenges that the taxi industries are facing is almost similar there? I know there are glaring correlation issues around regulation. Yes. And self-regulation and creating their own rules.
Yes.
And the like. Does it really need to get this to a level where there's correlations? And the reason I'm asking this is because I see the work that you are doing in professionalizing, informalizing, but making sure that you don't lose the heritage.
Yes.
But you also don't lose what the intention was. Economic emancipation.
Yes.
And economic emancipation can now take a different turn, where those that have the resources, we run to help us emancipate ourselves.
Yes.
I don't think it makes sense.
No, it doesn't make sense. For me, challenges are opportunities for growth. I think, yes, you're very correct. I think even in the funeral industry, you find that most of the cars that they use are leased.
Yeah.
I would put it plainly this way. I think there was a gentleman or a lady on one of the podcasts that generally spoke about the fact that the taxi industry is not black owned.
Yeah.
Because we have financial institutions that demand
that you are obligated to.
They are obligated. So in essence, we are working for the financial institutions, and they are more capitalism. They are not about socialist. They are not about Ubuntu, if I can put it that
absolutely.
way. They are about, I give you R5, I want R5.50.
Yeah.
That's it. I don't care if you
make it or not. Yeah.
I don't care if people don't work anymore. I don't care this. Otherwise, I repossess and then I give it to someone else who can do it. But generally speaking, until we are able to be in a position where we own more of the value chain, manufacture our own vehicles. I mean, it's quite sad that after all these years supporting a specific brand, I mean, the taxi industry is associated with a specific brand, but we do not have equity in that brand, and then you ask yourself, why are we still insisting on supporting people who don't support us? And going to the funeral.
And I guess that's where the energy yourselves
yes.
and your cohort now comes in. Not that the elders didn't do, but just like any epoch in our history, there had to be some youthful injection of agency so that things can change.
Yes, no, definitely.
Okay.
I think truth be told, our members are business people.
Yeah.
They are small business owners,
Yeah.
you know, and they would like to transition into EMEs and one day become enterprises, fully fledged enterprises. But we cannot do that if we are just dependent on one revenue generation model. And that is why we are saying even those within, because not everyone, you find one person having 1,000 taxis, then you find one person having one taxi. And the owners that these days, because of e-hailing, you find a young lady who works at a bank that is a taxi owner.
Yeah.
But you wouldn't think it's a taxi owner.
Exactly, yeah.
You understand? So that is why we are intentionally creating systems and solutions, as well as partnerships with institutions that can help our businesses actually transition from just informal side gigs into enterprises that can actually take the burden off of government for creating jobs. You know.
This weekend is World Tourism Day on the 27th.
Yes.
I'm dreaming of an environment where the SANTACO travel desk features prominently. I'm dreaming of an environment where, like we say, it starts here in Gauteng.
Yes.
Gauteng and South Africa's participation and ITB Berlin, one of the biggest trade travel show in the world. The South Africa Gauteng stand includes a minibus.
That would be
And the story it's articulated there. I'm dreaming of an environment where the transport and taxi public infrastructure museum it's embedded as part of the arsenal that are being showcased there, and it's not just a place to visit, but it's a place to actually learn. I was in an Adidas concept store, one of the only two in Africa, in Sandton City. And they have a section, Adidas Johannesburg, where they produce merchandise. And right at the back there was there's a big Adidas original logo, and they were actually telling me the story that that logo is designed out of scrap metal from a taxi.
Oh,
you know.
yeah.
So it's not just a finished taxi. So when you conceptualize the museum and all of those things, there are so many of those partnerships. You had the likes of Zolabat. I'm at that age where I remember Zolabat,
Yes.
and actually later on, the Toyota taxis Sprinter was called as Zolabat.
Yeah.
You know,
Yes.
And that's what you were referring to.
Yes.
So I see countless opportunities, and from the side of the owners, the side of the industry, the drivers, I see progress that you are making. What about our taxi ranks? Taxi ranks have been put in as places where people comes in. There's informal trading that happens there. You already some Adobe and all of those things. And I know the Growing Gauteng Together 2030 vision and its sectoral approach prioritizes the taxi economy. And part of that include taxi rank as economic hubs. How train stations were built, and later on they realized they didn't build kiosks for shops, and and they had to retrofit.
Yeah.
How are you involved in reorganizing that setup, that it doesn't become a place of shaming and belittling women? It doesn't become places on illegal activities. It doesn't become spaces where urinating in public is allowed. But it becomes a hub where I actually can go and ask for direction. It becomes a hub where there is economic activities, but it also becomes an attractive space for brands that are part of the entire value chain, where you are able to advertise, where they are able to leverage. Right now, I've seen brands just milking the space because of the eyeballs, but not creating
Value there.
a value and a hub that is multifaceted. What are some of the projects that you guys are involved in, including your own digital transformation projects around a taxi rank specifically? You have the likes of your North, you likes the Bosmans in Pretorias and the like. So taxi ranks, especially in Gauteng, it's a make or break it space, because that's where you first arrive. And if the visitor or the commuter experience is not great, everything gets jeopardized.
Thanks for that one, Baba. I think, to be honest, the Premier of our wonderful province once mentioned taxi ranks of the future in one of his many speeches. And that is a concept and a vision that we fully embrace, But in light of that, and that is why our president has been going around the world finding partners that can really invest in the taxi industry, because we feel also our spaces need to be improved. They need to speak to a safe environment, a safe economy, an economy and environment that is conducive to young children, young women, older women, men, young boys operating and respecting each other in that space. We envision a future where a young mother from Soweto is able to leave home 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock because they work somewhere in town with their child, drop their child at an ECD center at a taxi rank, go to work, come back at whatever time they come from work, find their child safe and sound, get into the taxi and go home. That is what we see in the future. But for that to be possible, we need local partners and international partners. Who do we mean local partners? Most of these spaces are owned by municipalities. And, for us to invest or make any changes, we need permission from the municipality. I saw
maybe they must just give you a 99-year lease.
That would work.
And a shared revenue model.
That would work.
Why is it possible to do that with stadiums?
Yes. I think that is it's a conversation that needs to be had. I mean, especially in light of our vision in terms of net zero travel, we want to venture into EV cars. We are now in discussions with even BYD, the leading EV manufacturer in the world, to see how we can design taxis of the future, especially looking at Scholar Transport, how we can then looking at UK, they have a vehicle to grid solution where as a car moves, you are able to then sell the power that it generates back to the grid. So we are future ready and we want to be future proof. And in being future proof, we also need to consider our infrastructure.
But it starts at the taxi rank.
It starts there at the taxi rank. And then for us to lay that foundation, that requires, especially in a global society, collaboration is the new form of competition. And until we can actually effectively comply, we can't hope to collaborate with government.
But what are your own investments there? I mean, do you need a municipality permission to put up a solar thing on top of that thing that covers the taxi rank? Do you need a municipality's permission to put up cameras that are linked into the central command so that you play your part? But then everybody else must then buy into that. Don't you think those are some of the low-hanging fruits?
No, definitely. Those are the low-hanging fruits that we need to have discussions with either SALGA or the municipalities directly, because the agreements are not the same. We don't want to just get into a space and do as we please, as is known for the taxi industry or taxi guys. No, we are now speaking a different language. I think I go to many platforms and they get surprised when I represent SANTACO and I'm speaking this corporate language. I'm a corporate mageza,
For sure.
So for me, it's about how do we find what can I say, common ground. And as we were speaking to GGT 2030, we're saying we're ready to play our part, but we're waiting to be what can I say, invited into those spaces.
Don't wait to be invited. Invite yourselves. Use the collaboration like with the MOU with Satovito to actually start pioneering. There are a lot of tour operators. There are a lot of destination marketing companies that don't own fleets. And instead of getting preferential rates from the fleets that are in SANTACO, they go somewhere else to the established ones. So there lies an opportunity where the fleet that transports scholars, and therefore on Saturday, Sunday there is no school. They can be put into a tourism ecosystem to transport visitors to game park and nature reserves. For me, that's where I see this interrelations. Your message to those that are watching, that are listening to us, about the industry and where you are going and how they could also contribute towards the success and you getting to where you want to go quicker. because ultimately you are not doing this for yourselves.
Yes.
The consumer and the riders and the customer-centric approach surely depends on them playing their part also.
No, definitely. And that is why we've been together with our technical partners putting together a zero-rated app where we would be giving... SANTACO Travel and Tourism was formulated to give a voice to the commuter. But it was also formulated to give a voice to the private sector, public sector, which is government, as well as everyone in between. So it is more of a place where we are all able to contribute towards the creation of a mobility ecosystem that can benefit all of us. And that is where we would then expect the public to play a bigger role. I think even with the mention of UJ, we will be hosting spaces where we would be inviting young people who are literally the future, as well as experts within transportation to help us craft the way forward, for us to discuss exactly what we should be working towards together, to discuss how we position South Africa in light of the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement, to be, what can I say, a leading role player in the transformation of Africa as a leading, continental player. So yes, I think that will definitely happen once we are able to provide the platforms for people to actually contribute, because more than anything, we are the engine behind the nation, and that won't change.
Yeah.
You know?
So your take on is Transport Month.
Yes.
October is Transport Month. This is a period in which we showcase our transport and mobility prowess.
Yes.
But coming just on the backdrop of September having been Tourism Month.
Yes.
And now the interface between transport and tourism. We just had a brilliant execution of the Joburg Absa Run, where the Gautrain was a partner. People were able to move from the minibuses into the Gautrain, into the event and back. We just had a Scorpion King in Loftus, where seamlessly people were able, for the first time, the Gautrain system in 15 years transported over 18,000 people in a single day.
Wow.
But they were able to then get into the station. The station closed at 2 o'clock. Get into the PRASA system and seamlessly move into the event and come back. Do you see yourselves playing part as we mark Transport Month, as the entire players in the ecosystem pulling together your prowess, but also learning from each other for the betterment of our mobility and transport infrastructure?
No, definitely. We have drafted a mobility, safety and interoperability framework in partnership with the Tourism Business Council of South Africa, which speaks to, as I mentioned, the response service, which speaks to the panic buttons, which speaks to interoperability, a one ticketing system, if I can put it that way. Yeah. Because we realize the value in intermodal transport, in allowing people to travel according to their preferences and according to, what can I say, the economic limitations, because sometimes not everyone can afford an Uber, but most people prefer ride sharing, where they are able to then pay less.
And how is that not a traditional taxi environment? You get me?
Yes, no, I absolutely get you, and I would be amiss to not mention the fact that yes, we are in discussions with Gautrain. There's already a few pilots here and there, a few of our members that are already being feeder. They're already feeding the Gautrain stations. Yeah. And in terms of PRASA, those are the discussions that we now want to start having with PRASA, to say, look, instead of just focusing on just the long haul, we could also position ourselves as feeder to the trains, because at the end of the day, how much do our people pay to travel? About 40
Your
to
message
60%.
To the transport authorities and the delays in some of the finalization of your permits. Sometimes, like I said, we tend to concentrate on just the wrong things. But on the other side, if things are not done in an agile manner, it affects your own business.
Yes.
Here it's a platform. Speak to them.
No, definitely. I think the provincial regulatory entities would need to, honestly, in light of our collaboration with the TBCSA, they have gotten hold of the Presidential Red Tape Reduction Unit to see how they can, what can I say, digitize operating permits to operating permits. And we are also saying the same. The backlog is part of the reasons why we have conflict within the sector, why we have fraudulent activities within the sector where people pretend to be lawful compliant operators. And if we can have an opportunity together with the provincial regulatory entities through the Department of Transport to digitize the permit process, we would really appreciate that. I mean, we look at progressive countries like Dubai, where there are vending machines literally where people can print their driving licenses.
Will you say that will also address some of the concerns raised? And I guess it might have been a little bit of little to no information or lack of it. The issues around the regulations and the need to actually brand the e-hailing vehicles so that I can know this is a Bolt or this is an Uber car. I've seen a branded Uber in other destinations,
Yes.
and I didn't hear noise. Your take, and does this relate to what you are talking about around all the role players coming in and assisting in implementing the regulations that have just recently been gazetted?
No, definitely. I think all the role players, law enforcement, including the regulatory entities, we need to come together. We need to incentivize compliance, because currently illegal operation is almost incentivized. It's almost justified due to the backlogs in terms of applying for permits, and then it's also incentivized due to the number of players that, pirate cars that are just within the ecosystem. You find a person branding a car top operating, but they're not top operating. We find human trafficking has risen. We find cars that do not have a brand, do not have a name associated on them, parking around very sensitive areas like school parks, or schoolyards. And unless we embrace legislation, unless we embrace regulation, we are always going to find ourselves in a situation where we are almost compromising ourselves and compromising society. So I feel that in as much as some people may feel that branding of cars would lead to certain elements, I think we also need to speak about who carries the cost of compliance, but that is a story for another day.
That's why we need you back again. We need a part 2.
Okay.
Your take on driverless cars and how that affect the future of taxi industry, and does that address the build-up perception about the problems being the drivers?
No, look, I would be honest. Most of our people cannot afford what some people can afford. And our environment, our infrastructure will never allow certain technologies to take off in South Africa. Well, especially not now. We just simply don't have the infrastructure, nor the commercial incentive for multinational, for such to invest here. So I think certain things I know we take ourselves on a European, American standard, but we need to realize we're here, we're in Africa. Certain things come down. Certain things cannot enter into our space.
Now all of a sudden M1 is flooded by driverless cars.
Who's going to pay for those?
Got you.
Yeah.
Your favorite food, probably traditional food, and where do you get it in Gauteng?
Yeah, no, Namatlo, Skop.
Okay, Skop.
Yeah,
okay.
No, and my favorite place in Gauteng, I don't know, man.
No, where you get the Skop?
Soweto.
Where?
So Deep Kloof.
Okay.
Yes.
Plug them. This is your opportunity.
Yeah, no, Deep Kloof.
Place. Yeah.
I get the most perfect scope at Deep Kloof taxi rank. Yeah.
Your favorite song, not necessarily favorite song, one song that you think, in your view, represent the energy, the pulse, and the tenacity of Gauteng as characterized by how fast-pacing the taxi industry is?
As you asked me that, just one song came into my mind. Izwa imithandazo yethu.
Oh wow!
Yeah, that for me, Kabza, that's.
And imithandazo yethu
Yes.
is not just about protection, but it's about the future.
Yes.
And this future that you have articulated, this professional taxi industry, this digital and always on ecosystem that you are trying to build, you are praying for it.
That's what we do. And prayer is not just being on your knees and closing your eyes. Sometimes you need to dream with your eyes open and speak to your God, speak to the ones that have lived before us through your actions, through how you carry yourself, through how you treat a fellow human being. I think we forgot who we are, and I think we need to remember who we can be.
Eugene, thank you very much for heeding our call and coming in and sharing this much. Like I've said, we definitely need to go into part two. There's just so much that we need to unpack. But us at Gauteng Life, we recognize the work that you do and your colleagues. We look forward to putting into practice the tenets of our collaboration to get working. I still want to take you on that exhibition.
Yes.
There's Meetings Africa coming in February.
Yes.
Let's showcase some of this. At least we are making a commitment here, so when they see it happening,
Yes.
we'll have made a commitment. But once again, thank you very much for heeding our invitation.
Thank you so much for inviting us.
Transport moves the economy, it moves people, and most importantly, if it moves people to our heritage sites, to our events, and to our prestigious botanical gardens and parks, that's the interface between transport and tourism. As we mark October as Transport and Mobility Months, us at Visit Gauteng pledge to continue working with all the role players. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Follow us at Visit Gauteng on Instagram. We are also at Gauteng Tourism Authority on Twitter. We are at I Love Gauteng on Facebook. Don't forget to download the Visit Gauteng mobile app. Whether you run a small business, you run an event, operations, you have a fleet to list that the tour operators can hire or book out. Download your profile, create your profile absolutely for free on the Visit Gauteng mobile app and allow us to share your details, your business, and your services with the rest of the metaverse. That has been another exciting episode of Gauteng Live. Until the next episode, second round.